Hey, I'm Dennis. Welcome to Outdoors with Dennis. We're going to do all kinds of things on the channel. We're going to have some outdoor cooking, a hunt and fish. We're going to talk about hunting, fishing. It's after the season. I'm going to do a little post-season clip of the deer hunting area today. We're right on the edge of an urban hunting area, right up here in the trees around the houses. These hollows run up right up next to the houses. The deer lay down here on these south hills. We're going to do some fishing, some kayaking, cooking outside. We're just going to do a bunch of things. So stick with us, and we'll add another clip in another day or two. But today I'm going to talk about some post-season scouting where I deer hunt here on the farm. We're just like one ridge. We got about 60 acres in here. It runs straight back, goes about a mile, and it's a very diverse ridge. There's a lot of pine pockets on it. There's hardwood ridges, there's hardwood bottoms. We got some creeks out here. 4 or 5 ridges run together right out here about 100 yards behind me, and I'm only 100 yards from my house here. But and these big bucks run these ridges right here on the house looking for these does. We plant stuff in here for them, feed them corn and things like that, and we have a lot of big deer come through here. Some of them you get a shot at, some of them you don't. If they're running through the thick stuff, you don't get a shot at them. They walk out in front of you, then you may. But I want to pan out a little bit and look back towards the house here and show you what I'm talking about, how close we are to the house. Just pan around. As you can see, there's woods going around behind the house, and then you keep on going on up the hill, and that's about how far we are from the house right here. This is our garden spot right here. I let it grow up last year, and but I'm going to mow it, put some stuff out here this year. And then this area in this hollow here is between us and another house. But the deer really use these hollows to travel through, crossing the hard road, which is about 200 yards that way to our east. And then they cross these ridges a whole lot coming back and forth through here. I'm going to move on out this way a little bit. But right now I'm going to show you kind of the layout of this little spot right here. I killed a big 11-point deer right here one year, coming down the edge of my garden here. This was a roll of honeysuckles back then, and I had soybeans in this field, and I happened to see the deer's antlers going up and down, so I started crawling about 20 yards away, crawled up to the edge right here, happened to get the drop on him, saw his antlers come up. When they come back down, I come up on one knee and shot him. I'll show him to you later. He's mounted in the house, but I shot him standing about 10 feet into that field. And we're going to cut this right here, and I'll carry you on out to the top of the hill where my stand is and look around a little bit here on the side of this ridge going out. As you can see, this area right in here, I've still got the camera set up where it was before, and I have wheat planted in this little strip right here, and you see one of the little kitty cats going down through there. It's amazing how the deer, the turkeys, they don't pay any attention to the cats. The cats will walk right out there through them. Sometimes there'll be 10 or 12 deer out here on top of the hill, and 7 or 8 turkeys run around, and you got the cats messing around out there with them. A fox will come through. Nobody really pays any attention to anybody else. But that little field runs out towards the top of the hill, and there's a good south bedding hill just on the other side of that wheat right there. And that's where you have a lot of deer bedding. When they get up first thing in the afternoons, they'll come stand right here, look around, try to figure out what's going on. And the wind always blows back to the east, which is to the left of what you're looking at here. And if you get over to the left a little bit and dig in, put a blind there. I've got a blind I put up over here. There's no way they can smell you. The blind's down kind of up under this little hill a little bit. They can't see you, and this is an excellent spot right here to nail a big buck coming out of his bed right there on the side of that south hill. A lot of people wouldn't think about that here 150 yards behind this house, but that's the way it is. We've got big woods on the back side of the place that runs back towards Rockhouse Creek, and then you get right up here close to the houses. We have a lot of thick hollows, and the deer just love them, and they love to come up here and play around in this stuff. And we're going to move on out to the top of the hill. Actually, I just moved over just a little bit to show you right here behind my building, this area coming out of this growed up field that's right behind my house. I have blueberries. You can see the tops of them over there. They're brown. And then you see this thick area running up this hollow, coming right up to here. The deer have several crossings coming across the road right here, going out to the top of the hill. It drops down right there in front of us. And then they come right here and cross right behind the building and cross right through this opening here. And then you could see them standing anywhere out in here. But the deer, they love to get up in here. They feel safe. We've got coyotes, bears. I've got a red wolf on film. And so they lay up in here in these hollows close to the house where they feel safer. But this is the other side of my garden right here. And when you get places like this, if you will manipulate them, put food in here, put corn in here, put protein blocks and other things like that, you're going to get all the does crossing in this area wherever you've got to hunt. If it's not but about 5 or 10 acres, look for choke points, get near thickets, and get where you can hunt downwind of wherever your corn and things like that is. And these deer will funnel right up these hollows and cross these open patches in here. And we'll move out to the hill now. Here's your shot back towards where we were standing in that little lower field that I showed you from up there. I'm standing out close to the top of the hill now. I'm about another 100 yards away. You can see we've got a strip of wheat down through there. The woods over to the right. They have plenty of bedding areas over here. This is a south hill. Once it starts getting cool in the fall, the deer will come in, bed in here. When they do have to get up in the afternoons and go out and start foraging, they're laying right on top of the area that I'll be hunting. Right out there in that field is one of the spots that I have a shooting lane cut to. And as you can see, there are two fields that come together. There's another hollow that comes to a point right over there straight across from me, right where I'm aiming now. And as you can see, the trees right there in front of me to the left, that's yet another hollow that comes up here. And those deer cross out of both of those hollows, and the hollow that I was showing you on the left out there next to the house, and come right out. And I have wheat planted out here, and I've let part of that field grow up, and there's wheat down to the left out there once you get into that field. And then I have an area right behind the pines, which I'll show you from over here towards my stand. It's about 60 yards, and it's right up against my dog lot where the deer don't come, they don't get behind me, they can't smell me, and the wind's blowing to the east, which is away from where they are most of the time. And I've been hunting here all my life, lived here all my life since the season came in Rockingham County. And no matter where I hunt, I never see as many deer or as many big deer as I do up here on this hill in this spot. So I pretty much just settle in. I'll go hunting with my buddies somewhere else every now and then, but I always want to be right here if I'm out. Here's a little hollow that runs right up in between my two fields here. I have a wheat spot on the right down the hill, and this spot over to the left, and I have a shooting lane cut through right over there, and my stand is right back over in there to the right of that opening where we go through, and it's a blind. And I've got a spot straight down the hill. I'll show you that area over there in just a second. But once again, we're still within 200 yards of the house here, and people just don't believe you know, that you see a lot of big bucks up here, but they follow the does, and if you've got 10 or 12 does in each field, then you're gonna have some big bucks cruising this area out here. Okay, you can see this small strip of wheat running back towards the thicket down there. I'm inside of my blind. I'm right up on top of the hill. My dog lot is about 15 yards behind me. Any deer that come out usually come out of this area down in here, out of that thicket. That was about a 6 or 7, 8 acre field. I've let about half of it grow up, and then I'm planting strips in the other half, and the deer just lay down in there. It's a kind of a deep hollow. It's got a south hill back in that area over there, and the deer just lay right there. And some of the biggest bucks I've shot will come out right at dark. The field may be full of deer. You may have 3 or 4 bucks out there, 6 or 7 does that have been out there for 2 hours, and that big buck just won't come out. You let a deer start fooling with a doe that he thinks is coming in, and starts getting close to dark, and they will come out of those spots and give you a shot. You can see where I had corn down there in the middle. There's a big circle down there. The turkey scratch it out, but I continue to give the deer a little corn on through the winter, and also feed them minerals and protein blocks to help them get through the winter and be ready to build the horns. But like I said, this right here, I have no idea how many bucks I've killed from this spot right here over the years. Once this area in here started getting about chest high with bushes, they really started bedding out there in it and just showing up all the time. Now I'll come out of the blind in a minute and show you from on down the hill, but over to the right there's a road going down to the end of the field that is beside of that hollow that I showed you up there next to the house, and it's right in behind my house. The deer bed right down in here to my right. Most of the time, even when the thermals are pulling the air down, if it gets real still in the afternoons, it peels off to the right and goes down to the side of this hill in this hollow over to my right. Now, if there's a deer in there, of course he's going to smell me, but probably 90% of the deer I shoot come out from over here, so I don't even worry about that. I do see a lot of deer cross down there, and I have killed them crossing that area down there. But this spot right here, man, there's not a lot of stuff planted out there. I just put corn out. It's a strip of wheat, probably about 20-25 yards wide, and that along with the other wheat strips around here, the heavy cover, honeysuckle, and all that just draws the deer in, draws the does in, and bringing the does in means you're going to have the bucks coming, and where you've got bucks, you'll have some big bucks come through. You've just got to hunt it. Here's my shooting lane over to the left out of my blind, and as you can see, I've kept it pretty clean, but I haven't made it real wide because number one, as you can tell, there's a lot of cover down in there, and the deer actually will walk up into my shooting lane, and actually the deer walk right by me right here. I have does and little bucks come right down the road beside of me. I have turkeys come down the road beside of me, within feet of me, and if that breeze is blowing, it's blowing my scent right back into my dog lot, and they don't even think about it. It's important to look at your property, see where you've got the advantage with wind, and then set up things around there to draw the deer into those areas where you can be more or less invisible to the deer, but yet at the same time you've got a shot back to wherever your planted foliage is, or your corn pile. But right across there's 3 hollows coming together right there, and they go back into some big woods down behind me straight ahead, and this one off to the right, it goes back down into big woods. But all the biggest bucks I've seen on this farm, I've seen up here in this zone, like coming right off of where the population is. The people move around. Deer see me out here all the time working on the farm. They don't pay any attention to me. You let me come slipping out here in my camouflage and they run. But they're used to smelling me out here. It's a big difference. In an urban area, they're used to smelling people. A little whiff of somebody doesn't necessarily send them on the run. And the does aren't scared at all, and even if a buck gets a little finicky, if a doe's not acting funny, a lot of times he'll come right on out to her. But yeah, you kind of have to plan it out. Make sure your scent's going the opposite direction from where you're hunting, as is true in any case where you're out deer hunting. But you can really set up some ambushes in close to houses, and where you've got hollows running up and ridges running down. You've just got to think about it and set your stuff up where you've got a good killing shot. That's a 60-yard shot to that bear spot right there, which is just a chip shot for my muzzleloader. I work during September and October, don't have a lot of chance to hunt, and so I'm set up to muzzleloader hunt here. And if I do get a chance to bow hunt, I'll set up a stand. I've got climbing stands. I'll go around and hunt a little bit on the edges, but I hardly ever venture down into these areas here, other than to put out corn. These thickets around here, I don't go tromping through them. I've been through them all my life since I was old enough to walk, and over the years I know where all the trails are, and I just stay away from them. Every once in a while I do take a little scouting trip like this post-season. It's about the second week in March now, and I'm going to look around a little bit over the farm for the next few days. And like I said, this first clip is just trying to give you like a rundown of the area I'm hunting, because right on the edge up here close to the house, it is one of those urban areas that you hear about a lot, that you can find some really big bucks on if you just pay attention to what you're doing. I'm right out in front of my stand now, and you can see the thicket that's in this hollow right off to my right, and this hollow lays right in between this big field and the small fields that are right behind my house. We let a guy come in here and cut some timber out of it to thin it out a little bit, help Mama's view of the mountains. And but this is a thick area. They lay all down this edge. There was saw a huge 8-pointer right down there about where it narrows down last year. His tines weren't but about 8 inches long, but he had decent mass, but I didn't want to shoot him. He went in right down there about where that cherry tree is, stood there for about 3 or 4 minutes, and there was another big 10-pointer out here. My daughter had a shot at him facing her, and she had missed him. And then when I saw him, he had broken 2 tines off, and so I didn't shoot him at that point in time. But both times he came out of that thicket right there in that field, right in front of you in that low spot. And right out in there, it's a south hill that runs along the top of that, back towards that big trees and stuff over in there, and the deer lay all down in there, and when they get up they don't have but a couple hundred yards to come out. You might be able to see a little patch I've got through those trees. It's another little patch of wheat down there. I try to give them some green stuff to eat all year long, along with the stuff that I supplement. I'm going to walk down here to the bottom of the hill and shoot back up towards me. You can see right there where I had corn poured out right here under this oak tree. It's right here to the right a little bit. It's a little white oak that's been over. comes through right, there's a path coming right through there from that other corn pile right to this corn pile, and the bucks and does run it like clockwork. And like I said, you can see the bare spot where I've had the corn out there and they've stomped it. And then as you look on up a hill, you can see where my blind is right up there on top. And that's about 60 yards to right here from up there where the blind is. And I pretty much got full command of everything down here that's open where I can see. And my scent's always blowing back that way. And even in the evening when the thermals are moving around, it sucks my scent down to the left of that stand into that other hollow. There's a big buck laying up close over there on the left. You know, he may smell me and not come out. But like I said, you know, nowhere your setup's going to be perfect. But I never come out here that I don't see a bunch of deer. So most of the time the wind is blowing back away from the deer down here, and it works out real well for an ambush situation. Still in the same spot, we're looking down this little hollow here that runs in between these two fields. You can actually see some of the wheat over there. It's in a strip right on the other side. This is a deep little hollow right here, and the deer really love to come up through it and hang around the edge down here and move across it, move out here, get something to eat, move back into the thicket, bed down, come back out again. The does just lay all up here around on top of this area up here, so they don't have far to go to feed. I can bring some corn out here, and I've got cameras up on trees, put out corn, come back and check your camera a couple of days later, and the deer were out here within 15 minutes at a time. I pull the truck away. So they're laying in here, they know what I do. They get used to, I'll drive in, put my corn out, don't walk around. Yeah, the only reason I go down in these woods is to drag a deer out once it gets anywhere close to the season. Because if it's a big one down here, I don't want him to smell you. If he sees you or smells you, he's going to leave 99% of the time. Or if he's following a doe, he's going to get very careful. Whereas otherwise, if he doesn't know you're there, you might catch him and get a shot at him. That's the hollow off to the right that grew up while we didn't have a tractor here. For a while we didn't have a tractor at the farm. That got big, but we're about to get into it with a bulldozer over there to the right. But as you can see, that's a good hollow for them to travel up through. Trails all down in there. There's at least 5 or 6 trails crossing this hollow, and 3 or 4 different trails coming in from the bottom side of this field. There's a big pine southern hill over there, across this little branch over here, and a thick area. It's the heart of the farm, and like I said, I don't go down in there. I'll drive down the road over there to the left past that field whenever I go, you know, to the back, and sometimes I'll put out some corn down there, and I've got another place to hunt over on the other side of the hollow that I can access by another road. But I stay out of here just as much as possible, and because I know every trail down here, they're going to put scrapes all up and down the edge of this field before it's over with. Once they start rutting, they come in here next to these feeding areas and they put scrapes in here, and you know, you don't have to look for the scrapes. The scrapes are right in there where all the does are. And walking down the edge of this little wheat field here, you see this trail, this well-worn trail coming right down the edge. The deer pop out of this hollow thicket on our right. They'll come out right in here where this stuff is cut most of the time, and they'll come right on around this corner right here, down this edge. If they're coming this way, come down that path, If not, they'll go right up there and cross and go into this thick stuff and go on wherever they were headed. About 100 yards down the hill, maybe 120, just below where the it narrowed down, and this is looking down into that thicket that was out in the middle of our field here. As you can see, there's plenty of places for them to lay. They'll lay right out in this open area down here as long as nobody's walking around the farm to spook them. Briars are in here. There's a south hill right over there, and then back on behind there's some big thickets and some big pines, big south hills, some ash trees, oak areas. But the deer will really work this area up in here, and they'll lay in here, you know, right there at the beginning of the season before they get spooked. They'll be up in here close. I always make sure that I don't shoot at anything unless it's a big deer, my first shot. You know, I could kill does early, but what if I shoot a big doe that was going to bring the big buck by me? I mean, I've got plenty of time to kill does once it starts cooling off and the rut's finished. But if you don't mess with the deer will get right up in here on top of these feeding areas, and you can take advantage of that and ambush them. I've got a two-man stand down there in one of these trees at the end of this little stretch right here. There's a little patch of wheat over there, and I'll hunt it sometimes also. Now I'm directly in front of my dog lot. I've moved over from my stand a little bit. The stand is actually right there in that little bunch of trees right on the other side of them. And you can see here we've got some rubs, small ones coming up through here right on the edge. They've hit trees. They hit trees all around. And another day I plan on going on down. There's a lot of bigger rubs as you move back into the trees and woodline a little bit in the larger woods, but you've got these little rubs. Some of them are larger and they've torn some trees up all around the edge of the fields, but there'll be some bigger rubs back in here on these hills back in there. And you can see right there, that's the area I'm shooting to from the left of my blind. And as you can see, this area right in front of the dog lot is also a nice wooded area. It's got mostly pines right here, but it does have hardwoods mixed in down there on down the hill a ways. And so there's plenty of food for deer out here in the fall. Sometimes when acorns are falling so hard they won't eat corn. Years that they don't have acorns, you can't put out enough corn for them. I'm still moving around that corner. You can see the trail here where they're coming right around the edge where those little rubs were and coming out over here towards the feed plot and the corn. And they'll come in and out of these woods, and I've got some pictures on my game cams of them walking down these, in and out on these trails coming away from the corn pile. You can see the area right here where I've been putting out food, corn, blocks, protein blocks, different things for the deer. Of course the turkey come in and eat them too. And this right here, what you're looking at, is the hollow right between the two corn piles here. The corn pile where I shot back up to my blind is right over there, right through the woods in that wheat field. And then you've got this spot right here that I also put out the same amount of corn in, put protein blocks and that type of stuff out. And then I've got a game cam on that little tree right there, stealth game cam. I get some really good pictures off that because the path comes right by that tree. I have a lot of bucks that'll look right back into the camera. But once again, that's that hollow in between these two little fields on this ridge. And like I said, you don't have to have a lot of land to hunt. All you got to do is know the land, know where the deer are. You know, let some thickets come up. If you can't get a thicket going, if you have a little patch, you can put some bicolor out there. It's a real good cover plant. Quail and turkey love it. It gets up 6 or 7 foot tall. A deer bed in it. But that point you see right over there is another hollow coming out into this field. And the deer, a lot of times, the big bucks will come right there and stand. And that's the first place I'll see them on this side, is standing right there. Then he may cross this field and come in behind these plum trees and come out right here with the does in the corn. Or he may just come right straight on down that trail right there from those little pines past that broom straw and walk right straight into the corn. We've had a bad winter. As you can see, there's some trees down here. I've got some work to do this spring to clean a little bit of stuff up. As you let things grow up, you also have to clean it up. Every few years you want to go in, like on this edge, cut all these small pines down, brush them up, get some of these small pines off the edge, put brush along the edge. Deer loves the bed behind that. You can see where I let the middle of that field grow up. It's got a pine or two that's fell in it now, but the deer just love coming out through that field over there. They'll cross right here all day long. You can see a deer any time of day right here if you're just sitting out there in that blind. Well, this is a shot looking back towards my blind. You can see the bare spot on the ground there. And that's right back towards my blind. 60 yards to that bare spot right there in front of me. And the deer really don't pay any attention to me up there. As long as I'm not moving around waving my arms, they hardly ever even look up that way. But there's times, there's 10 or 12 does out here and 2 or 3 bucks. And that's when it starts to get interesting, because whenever you've got that many deer out here and you've got a doe that's coming in season, that big buck standing around in one of these hollows most of the time, and he'll be the last thing to step out. You know, the field may be full of deer, but if you keep waiting, you may get a shot at that big one. If you pop a little one, everything will be gone. And you can see I've got some trees down here, but like I said, I've got to get those cut out. There's a single strip of wheat running right down through there. I've got a big pine over there. I've got a couple of pines over here. We'll have to get out there with a bobcat this year and knock those bigger bushes down. And I may plant some of this in soybeans out here this year. Normally they eat the soybeans up, but I've read there's something you can put on them now, so I may give soybeans another shot. But in small tracts like this, a lot of times there's nothing left but little stems 4 or 5 days after they come up. But wheat, turnip greens, clover, anything like that is good browse for them, and they like it during the winter. And you can see this hollow running off to the left. It's got some pines on the southern hill there. That to the right side drops off into that hollow where the corn pile's over there to the right. And this is a really good place to stalk around. I'll stalk around out here on this hill quite a bit. The thing of it is, you know, I don't really go way back down in the woods. If I don't have time to come out here and hunt, I'll come out here, and if they're not standing at the corn pile, I'll ease on down to the corn pile, turn this corner, look around. A lot of times you can catch them just standing around the edge of the fields. You don't have to move far, you just have to be careful. That's a wheat field right there that you see that pine laying over right there, and it runs all the way to the back of that field, and there's several trails coming out in it. A big hollow back over in there. A lot of times the first thing I'll see of a buck is I'll see his antlers back over in there where that big pine tree is. And a lot of times he'll cross and then he'll come out right in these pines right in front of me right here. Well, once again, this is just a good ambush spot. It's a good crossing. A lot of these big bucks aren't out here for more than a minute, you know, maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and they're gone. And so you've got to make up your mind whether you're going to shoot him or not. Is he big enough? And you got to do all that stuff pretty quick. Now, if he's slipping along the edge of the field, back in the edge of the woods, I always play safe than sorry. You know, if it looks like he's got a good rack and he's slipping through the thicket back behind there and I get a shot at him, I'm taking it. I'm not going to let a big one get away. Like I said, if they like this wheat, it's a good spot. All these hollows run together. A lot of people have this kind of topography around their houses or close by. And if you just utilize it, put your food in the right places, set your stand up in the right places, you'll start getting a lot of deer in there. And if they don't smell you, you know, they're gonna make that place their home. But they lay right, there's beds and that stuff right there in front of us. I'm not gonna work down into the bedding areas today. I'm gonna go back towards the house and show you that last little hollow that was over behind the dog lot, and then make another trip back through here through the rest of the farm. Probably take me a couple more clips to do that, but and just kind of give you an idea of the rest of the farm, how it lays. And there's deer all out there. They're bedded in all the old growed up fields, and you know, about anywhere you can walk you may be able to jump a deer. But they're more concentrated right along this line, which you might as well call an agricultural line, because it's, you know, it's wheat and they've got corn there. Although we don't have corn planted, I could plant this full of corn if I want to, but I just pour it out instead. I'd rather have the wheat for them, the green stuff, to help them through the winter. There's a shot down the edge of that wheat field that runs away from the blind back to my south. And as you can see, that's where the tree we got down over here, we got to get out of there. It had wheat on it this year. There's a hollow coming up both sides of this field, and the deer will come up both sides of that hollow and cross into this field. And usually if they're coming from this direction, they'll come out in here in this field and eat first, and I'll see them down here messing around. Then they'll go in the woods to my right, and then they'll ease right up here and come out through this thick stuff, these pines right here, and stand along this edge in here, and then head on to the feeding area. Now I actually, during rifle season, I can see down to the towards the bottom of that field if need be, but I'd much rather let them come on. If they're coming to me, I'm gonna let the deer get as close as they will before I shoot at them. These three guys here are my guard dogs. And anything that comes out in front of them over here, you get a full alert, whether I'm sitting out there in the blind. And you just wouldn't believe it. The deer do not pay any attention to them. The turkeys don't pay any attention to them. But from where they're sitting right there, they can see the edge of the woods over there in front of them. And you can hear I've got some dogs over to the left. We have bears and coyotes and everything else around here, so they'll come up in your yard. So I've got some dogs stationed around to bark at things. But these beagles, the turkeys drive them crazy. They'll come stand out here in front of the lot in this little wheat patch, and sometimes they get to be so noisy I have to get up out of my blind and sneak back through the pines and look and see what they're barking at. Most of the time it's a turkey, sometimes it's a little deer. I've seen a 6-pointer. They hadn't alerted me to a big one yet though, but as you can tell, they'll get noisy, and the thing of it is the turkeys will just stand there and look at them, and so will the deer.